Who's brave and ready for trouble?
Are you on?
Who's so unbelievably humble?
Are you on?
Who's the guy who rolls the dice?
Are you on?
And gambles with his life.
Are you on?
Who is your favorite fearless hero? It's the Review and Do podcast. I'm DJ.
I'm Evan.
And this is the podcast where we typically take a second look at our or your favorite movies. And if you'd like to make a request, hit that Ko-fi up at ko-fi.com/rapcritic. And thank you today to Arthur B. for his request for Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. That's right. Now, I think I've seen the first movie before and I remember enjoying it. But is this second movie, I'm not sure if it's made by the exact same, director or whatever.
Is this the second movie? I don't even know.
Yeah, there was a first one, because I remember.
No, I knew there was a first one. I was like, isn't this the third or fourth? There's a TV show.
Yeah,
Hold
that's
on.
right.
Puss in Boots.
This has been the most unlikely thing to happen, because this is a spin-off.
Yeah, this is the third one, because there was something called The Three Diablos.
I thought that was like a kid's show or...
Well, it might be the show. No, it's a
13 minutes, yeah.
It's a 13-minute short. There's also a TV show of Puss in Boots.
Yeah.
And that's not even touching all the different Shrek movies and spin-offs and shows and everything.
Right. Now, Puss in Boots was always a cool character. He was the highlight of the second movie, so it was kind of even if this franchise sucks, it's awesome that we're getting Antonio Banderas to commit to being basically Zorro, but as a cat. He gets a second chance. He gets a second pass at Zorro, but as a cat. Who would have seen it? You know what I mean? But he does it so, the thing about it is, I can't remember how much I enjoyed the first movie, but this movie, it doesn't have the sequel-itis feel of oh, here's a sequel. It so feels like its own energy. And at the same time, what I find is interesting is that not only does it feel like it's its own movie with its animation style and things like that, and I do have my issues with it, but at the same time, it feels like its own energy. It feels like it's responding to what Hollywood narratives at the time in films are, in a way that's really interesting, that it's actually doing something with, okay, the multiverse thing, we all know that's a thing, in modern movies, but wait, we all know fairy tales, and so this is actually doing something with that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a thing of they're actually, playing this up, and especially with how the narrative unfolds, where you're oh, it's just Puss in Boots trying to get the wish, he's fighting against death, and then it's wait, then it's Jack Horner, and wait, then it's also the three bears. And
I like that Jack Horner has an inferiority complex about the fact that he was only in a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, I love that.
That he has that genre awareness of where he comes from.
The way they play with genre convention, and especially John Mulaney, man, the way he flips the Jack Horner, what could have been just anybody villain in these movies where, of course, they're self-aware, sound like Andy Dick, and they're a jerk. You know what I'm saying? But the way he act, the jokes that he makes in this movie are so pinpoint onto, the expectation of how these narratives typically go, that it's wow, I actually really like this. There's one bit at the end that especially is endemic of how good his humor is, relative to what's happening in the movie. You know what I'm saying? When they let, actors or whatever riff in a movie, but it doesn't actually, play into the character or how the narrative of that character is unfolding. This movie really does that with the humor of John Mulaney's character when he gets the bits that he gets, joking on the fairy tales and this, that, and the third. So, that's just one thing off the bat that I was just ooh, wait a minute, this movie's cooking with some gas. It's legitimately funny. It's not just a kid movie funny, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Are we gonna real quick talk about the ogre in the room?
What?
Just that, no, they're just
the Shrek?
The Shrek. The fact that this is a spin-off of Shrek. I cannot believe.
A sequel to a spin-off of Shrek.
I cannot believe. So the original Shrek movie came out.
My sister loved that movie in the 2000s.
Dude. Yeah. The original Shrek came out in 2001. That is now 23 years ago.
2 decades.
And here's over 2 decades, almost two and a half decades. And it's okay, I'm in my 30s and I remember seeing it as a middle schooler in the theater because the moment. Have we done any of the Shrek?
I don't think
think we
so.
have.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to make that Shrek request, let's go
Unless we've done it again, as any ongoing listeners know, we cannot remember what movies we've done and not done.
You know someone's gonna, they're gonna request Shrek 4 or some shit.
But I remember seeing that first Shrek movie in the theater when I was 12. And the moment when, spoiler for a 23-year-old movie, when Fiona's singing to the bird higher and higher and higher, and then the bird explodes, I laughed so hard that I was in pain as a 12-year-old. And I mean, man, and that's where it all started. That is where that Shrek movie is now a universe.
Right.
Like, I feel like there is as much Shrek as there is Marvel stuff.
And it's so insane to think about because it's like that was supposed to be the ultimate, like, send up of the previous generation of cartoons by Disney. Like, you guys are just doing these fairy tales and not really doing anything with it. So let's actually do something with it. And in fact, we're actually going to take it to the next dimension where it's CGI
and now. It's like a weird meme with the kids.
Yeah.
I will tell you, so I have to, like, quick boring office guy anecdote. My after work game hour with my remote worker coworkers, we do this game called Scribbled, which is kind of like Pictionary, and I had the clue Shrek, and what I drew was a donkey with a speech bubble and an onion, and onion coming from an unseen speech bubble, and then the donkey with tears and a question mark and stinky lines and a question mark. And my coworkers, who are all millennials, all got it immediately. And I feel like that just tells you what Shrek means to us. Yeah. And so now Puss in Boots, which is, a sequel of a sequel of a spinoff of a spinoff. Here we are. And this cast.
Incredible.
I didn't look up the cast until just this moment. I'm like, wait a second. That was Harvey Guillen. I love Harvey Guillen. I didn't realize he was Perito. And I'm going to hold off my bitching about the Bears.
What? What's your beef with the Bears?
No, okay, here's my specific complaint. I'm going to go ahead and just, this was the one, like, thought that was sticking in my head that was annoying me, is I'm so tired of hearing criminals with Cockney accents in movies. I'm tired of it. And if I wanted to be
it's a kids movie. They got to do the conventions.
No, well, and it's the cliche of it all. If I wanted to be all like high and mighty, be like, oh, it's actually problematic that you're automatically associating lower socioeconomic classes with criminality. But no, it's a cliche and it's annoying. And the fact is, like, okay, at least like Florence Pugh and Olivia Colman, I don't know. Papa Bear is this guy, Ray Winston. I don't really know who he is, but like Florence Pugh and Olivia Colman are British, at least. But like Olivia Colman, I actually just saw Wonka in theaters with my kid, and she's playing a bad guy in Wonka and has that same Cockney accent in that. And then there's like in Sing, which did we do Sing? Am I imagining?
No, we haven't done Sing.
I thought we did Sing. Anyway, maybe I just watched that with my kid. Sing has the gorilla family who are all Cockney, even though they seem to live in the United States. And how do you become a Cockney accented American crime syndicate? And I'm just tired of it. It's just a cliche and it's annoying, but that's all. Anyway, but Olivia Colman's great and Florence Pugh's great, and that was and I'm sure people are gonna be like, that's a stupid thing to get mad about.
Hater, boo this man, hater McHaters.
But whatever. But no, this cast is incredible, and
also we're just enjoying the rest of the accents in the movie, especially Salma Hayek.
Salma Hayek and Antonio Banderas are fantastic casting.
And the way that they say
Zorro Cat and Girl Zorro Cat,
and the way they say Puss in Boots, because Antonio says Puss, and Salma Hayek says Puss, like we're in a way where it sounds like there's like an extra syllable in there somewhere. So it's like it's one of those things where it's so perfect that these two are the main ones saying his name, because most of the time saying just Puss, that doesn't sound good.
Yes.
Yeah, like,
I mean, can I just say,
Puss. You need a little life in there.
The fact that we have a whole franchise of children's movies with the word Puss in the title. Because when I was like, I remember when I was a kid, like you couldn't say the word Puss or Pussy without I mean,
Well, that's another thing to talk about.
Unless-
The language that's used in this movie, that was a little surprising. Like,
well, it's PG, right?
yeah, I know, but that just threw me off. I
Well,
was like,
but,
oh.
you know, it's kind of a return to form because if we think about it, like, you remember we were watching like North and we were watching
Road to El Dorado.
yeah,
you know what I'm
like
saying?
watching some PG rated movies from the 90s, they had a lot more.
That is true.
And now it feels like even PG, it's like, oh, we got to keep it because there's a lot more like, oh, can't have anything that might offend anybody.
But there was
So-
like a point where they actually did curse where I went like, oh.
Yeah.
But then they cut out some cursing and I was like, okay, that works a little better. It's like the sailor mouth. Oh, it's the word, but they didn't say it because they do it once at the beginning and then they do it in a way that I really like with the dog, Perito, where he's like cursing them out, but kind of going like, oh, don't we all love this? Like,
Yeah,
Perito is basically what I feel like what's his name from Frozen should have been.
Olaf?
Yeah, Olaf. The
Because
like
Perito
the guy
is genuinely cute and also
and you
knowing.
think he's gonna be annoying, but then you go like, wait a minute, he's got a pretty good outlook on life and he's kind of sweet. Like,
Yeah, and also knowing that he is voiced by Harvey Guillen, I adore him, but also he has like the fact that he's called Harvey is because like this is in Wikipedia, like his birth name was
see on Harley
Javier. Wait, hold on.
Go down.
He's Nightwing. He's Nightwing. Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, I think I saw that his birth name is Javier, and his teachers couldn't say his name, so he started going by Harvey. It's like, that's bullshit.
Wow.
Like, it's not that he didn't like his name, it's just that his teachers couldn't say it. And so I definitely don't want to say his name wrong when that's
Look
that
at
whole
you.
thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he's adorable and I love him. And the
Yes.
fact that he played Perito makes Perito
Oh my
even
God.
more adorable.
He's so good in this movie.
Because Perito could have been really annoying, and
Yeah,
he's not.
it runs because I wanted to like Olaf in the Frozen movie, but I remember watching the movie and being like, he's just not that funny.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my problem with like Disney movies is that like they're so reining in the comedic characters that they don't really allow them to be funny people saying funny things.
It also, I feel like, part of what makes Perito not annoying is that it's almost like he's supposed to be kind of annoying, and because he's supposed to be
It's
kind of
the
annoying,
lead-in, yeah.
it's like there's a container for any potential annoyingness, whereas with like Olaf, it's like, isn't he cute? You're supposed to
Right.
think he's really cute, and you're not supposed to find him annoying at all, and so you do find him annoying.
Yeah,
You know?
it's trying.
It's like that-
Disney's trying to thread the needle, but actually make him cute. But then this movie genuinely makes his character like affect how like.
Also,
you know
little
what I mean?
dogs are cute, and
Yeah.
misshapen snowmen are not cute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, indeed. That was just a harder needle to thread. But so basically, the plot of the movie is Puss in Boots is like this, daredevil rogue who's got 9 lives. The movie opens up with him like in what looks like this, like, really nice house with all these people, like, reveling from the food that he's providing. It's like, oh, and it's the song that's playing, who's your favorite fearless hero, which I thought got a little simple, was a little simple as the thing was going on.
I
I was
feel
like,
like
is
it
it
was
just going to keep repeating this
I
part?
feel like it was kind of supposed to be like,
Yeah.
in the Lego movie, that everything is awesome.
But I felt
and
like
it's
that was
supposed to
better
be like
worded.
dystopian, but then people like.
Yeah, like I get what
latched
you're
onto
saying
it.
there, like that, but I felt it worked. This felt a little too Baby Shark do, where it's like you just have 2 parts repeating, where it's like, who is your favorite fearless hero? Who is your favorite? Like it just repeats that, and then for the other part, it's like I like it a little bit, but it feels like it goes on for a little too long with the. Who does the da 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 da? You do. Like it just goes on. Like there's a little bit of a clever part at the end where he goes like, Puss in Boots is never afraid, and he goes like, yes, you are. I was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit of something. But like it just felt like a little. Just slightly undercooked for what it should have been. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt like I should have been tapping my toe. You know what I'm saying? But at the end, I was kind of like, I kind of remember what happens, but it feels like it's just that one part. So by the time it gets to the end, I was like, oh, was that the whole song? Like I guess. But then it was kind of funny. You see the Castilian Hidalgo High Lord or whatever coming in with his wig, and you turn out it's that guy's house the whole time. And Puss, how dare you? Dishonor my house and whatnot. So he's running away, causing this whole action scene, giving a bunch of money and food to the people and whatnot. He eventually accidentally awakens this sleeping giant that is somehow like really close to the town somehow. But like that, this is the thing that kind of tells you is like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be like, I don't know if allegorical is the word, but it's like this is a very kid's story sort of thing, like here is a very, rogue superhero hero, and he's going to learn a very hard lesson with hubris. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it really, really sets it up to feel that way, right? But it gives just a couple more twists and turns in a way that's like, ooh, this could have just been a simple kid's story, but they actually, like, put a little complications in here that made it a modern story that I actually really enjoy. You know what I'm saying? Now, I will say, the animation, as much as I love as vibrant and big as it is, like, the way that it's animated on, like, the fours or whatever, keeps, like, jutting to my eye when you see, like, the really big action scenes are happening, and then it's like you can tell they didn't have as much, like, budget, so they wanted to make it look really good, but they couldn't, like, necessarily connect the animation of it happening. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
You can see those moments, and, like, a couple of times it works stylistically, especially early on when it's like, oh, they need to make a big flashy moment where he's splaying all over the place. Like, I actually do have that moment of like, oh, it actually feels like a comic book a bit, where it's like it's splashy and it's supposed to be a big splayed out moment. But there's parts later at the end where it feels a little bit like, okay, why did that just happen really quick? That wasn't really worth it, and that just feels jagged. You know what I'm saying? So, like, as much as I do like them being adventurous, like, I can't help but notice that it's just like, I don't think it does quite enough to get my eye over, like, you know what I'm saying? How the jaggedness of it in those big actiony parts. But I will say, like, it's not most of the movie, so it's not that bad. So we get into the movie proper where, like, he gets hit by a bell and, he goes to the town doctor who tells him that, like, he's lost 8 of his 9 lives. He's only got 1 left. And, Puss initially is like, I could never, give up my adventuring ways. But then, of course, El Lobo comes through, this gentleman who's got these 2 scythes, a wolf. And it seems like to come off like he's like a bounty hunter who's kind of like, oh yeah, I've seen you. I've been following you around. And I know that you've only got 1 life left. So, maybe run. And he goes like Puss finds out, and then it's like, oh, wait, why does this guy know? Oh my God, my adventuring days could legitimately actually be over. So you see this fearless hero, again, like the setup was like, oh my God, he's this guy who, you can't get to his ego. And then it's like, oh, wait, he finds out he's legitimately only got 1 life left. Not as fearless as you thought now that there's actual stakes on the line. And so you see he's getting like, heart palpitations and shit, like he's running for his life from this wolf who's trying to attack him, even though he was just the guy who saved the town from the giant, right? So basically having been shamed into like having the shame of like, oh man, like I can't face this guy, I know I'm running for my life and I know I fear death. So, like, he kind of gives up his life and goes to this Mama Luna woman who, like, is a cat lady and has all these cats. I didn't recognize all of the voices in this movie, but it's one of those things where it's just like, even if you don't know the voices, they're such vibrant voices that you're just like, I wonder who this is, you know what I mean? Because when I looked her up, I couldn't recognize who that was, but I just really liked her voice. It was just like, dang, I was just hoping that it was someone because her voice was just so, like, you know what I'm saying, vibrant and big. I was like, that's gotta be like Tiffany Haddish or something.
Was that the Latifah Uwao? She's credited as Crazy Woman.
No, it's Mama Luna.
Oh, Divine Joy Randolph was.
Yeah.
Actually, this is like, I feel like this is listing for like all the Puss in Boots movies, so she might have been in a different one.
Yeah, no, it's Divine Joy Randolph. Yeah. But I couldn't recognize it from anything other than like, I think another Disney movie.
She was in The Holdovers. Divine Joy Randolph. Wait, was she the cat lady?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I don't know who Crazy Woman is, but yeah, Divine Joy Randolph was in The Holdovers, which is wonderful, and everybody should see that also.
So after that, he buries his clothes and he kind of like, buries Puss in Boots and kind of like gives up his life, grows a cat beard. And it's kind of
the beard is so big, it's like he grows like a human-looking beard,
and it's there for a while.
And it's just like the cats don't grow beards like that, but I guess they also don't typically wear boots and stuff.
So he's like living his life as like a sad cat, that's just a house cat given up on his wild ways.
Like eating dry, unappetizing kibble out of a trough with all the other cats don't talk. It's like it's one of those things where like. Very often, and I think we saw this in the other Puss in Boots movie, there are other cats that act more like regular cats.
But Perito, who shows up basically wearing a fake cat outfit.
Is he a chihuahua? He's like a little, he's some kind of little dog wearing like a knit cat ear hat.
Yeah, because he's trying to fool the old lady. Yeah. And, Perito keeps bothering him and going like, hey, who are you? What's your name? And, he's like, my name is Pickles. Because that's what she named him. Yeah. And, he's like, taking the name because he's feeling so,
But a
insulted.
cat named Pickle.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
Pickle,
true.
one Pickle.
One day, Goldilocks and the three bears, they show up at her house, kind of like trying to conscript him to like look for the map to the wishing star. However, like they end up instead seeing like his grave, so they think he's dead. But then he hears about it, and so he's like on his way to find the shit too, right? Now, Perito comes with him, and they come across Big Jack Horner, played by John Mulaney.
Yeah.
And I remember at first like kind of being like not liking the design. It was like Big Jack Horner. Because I was like, who the hell is this? Like
he's like huge but out of proportion, has like a tiny face.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I remember at first being like, what is this character?
Yeah, he has a disturbingly small face.
Yeah, but then when you get the backstory and see that, like, oh, that's what they're doing here. It's
I love the detail of like his one thumb is permanently stained purple.
Yeah.
From sticking it in the plum pies.
Right. So he's got a magic bag where he's like basically trying to he wants to control all magic essentially.
Right, and he's a sort of like crime boss hoarder.
Yeah. And Horner the Hoarder.
Yeah.
And one of the things he comes across, which I love, is the good conscience cricket.
Yeah, you get Jiminy Cricket, which which I feel like was Jiminy Cricket in the original Pinocchio? Was that
Is that actually played by him? I don't know. It couldn't be. No way. That doesn't feel exactly like his voice.
1941. Who are we talking about? Jimmy Stewart.
Jiminy Cricket.
Cliff Edwards was Jiminy Cricket in the original Pinocchio movie, but this Jiminy Cricket sounds just like Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, but I mean, Jiminy, clearly they're referencing him with the name, like, Jiminy, you know what I'm saying? So this is just leading, like, and that's what I like about this movie. This really does feel like that next level Shrek energy. The way this movie plays with like fairy tales and stuff and like does the references and stuff, it's just like, I actually am really enjoying, like it doesn't feel like a cheap gag, like a Trolls movie referencing whatever the fuck, like it feels like actually, oh, that's actually really
the
smart.
references are thought out and something is done with them. It isn't just like, hey, you know this thing.
Yeah. And what I really love about the way they use, the Jiminy Cricket character is that he's supposed to be I'm your good conscience and I'm telling you to do the right thing, even though this guy is clearly like very clearly and obviously doing the bad, wrong thing. And so it becomes this thing of like, this guy's supposed to be your conscience and he seems to not be helping you at all. And eventually he tries to like break it down his character and be like, oh, let's talk about your family life. What happened? What made you this way? And it's like, well, I had two loving parents that gave me everything I wanted and and I just kind of wanted more. So anyway, it's just like, oh, okay, he's a spoiled brat. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I love how this movie, because a lot of, especially Disney movies, are grappling with how to make villains. And I feel like this movie did that so well of like yes, there are those people who are just greedy assholes who don't give a shit.
Can I, Can I go on a slight tangent / spoiler for like a true crime Wondery podcast? I'm sorry, Wondery.
Okay.
There's one of these Wondery podcasts called Who is Mordecai, I think, or like Do You Know Mordecai? And it's this guy, basically it's one of these, here's some asshole who scammed a lot of people, let's call him out podcasts. And there's this guy, he was pretending his name was Mordecai, his name was not Mordecai, he was pretending to be Jewish, he was not Jewish. And he basically was like dating a lot of women, scamming them, lying to them, all this stuff, like real piece of shit. And they confront him near the end, like the podcast people track him down. And he was like crying and sobbing about his terrible childhood. And his example of like how his childhood was so traumatic and terrible is he said like he came home and the table was set for dinner, but the cutlery was upside down. Like he literally was like, I was like, what? Like it took me like, I was sitting there like, what does that mean?
It's like, are you fucking with
Are
me?
you like what?
You got
like
to know
literally,
that's not a bad thing.
Like literally, what does that mean? Do you mean like the fork was like on the table, like with the tines pointing down? Is it like, what does that mean? And he was like acting like the way you'd say like my parents locked me in the basement and fed me to rats. Like,
right.
Like, and it was like that. It was that kind of energy.
Yeah. So, but I like how
fuck you, random guy on a Wondery podcast.
but you know what I mean? Like the way it characterizes this character, because at first I kind of felt the sort of villain fatigue of, oh, you're going to have Jack Horner and the three Goldilocks bears.
But it had that sort of like big heist movie energy.
Yeah, and it gave dynamics to the characters because the Jack Horner character, he's just a jerk who's irredeemable. Meanwhile, the Jiminy Cricket character is trying to like...
I think having antagonists in addition to your villain is an interesting move.
Yeah, because the three bears, like, and Goldilocks...
They're not really bad. They're criminals, but so is Puss in Boots.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So it becomes this thing of like, okay, and as I was watching the movie, I remember having that moment of like, oh, you're just gonna have, all these bad people, but then it was like, oh, you're giving these people depth and character because they're family people who maybe they really do care about each other, even though they have their issues.
I liked the idea that the bears just kind of adopted Goldilocks.
Yeah, again, this is what I mean, like expanding on the universe in an emotionally nuanced way of like, because they give you the thing about the wishing star is that the journey to the wishing star changes like the world around it by who's holding the map. I was like, that's such a brilliant, like, not only like story thing, but just like an aesthetic, like just makes the movie look beautiful now because now you have an excuse to go from, well, this person's holding the map, so now it's going to get craggy and this person's holding the map. Then it's going to, especially when Perito holds the map. That was my favorite fucking part where Perito holds the map and then all of a sudden it's like a bunch of blue daisies or something like that and you think everything's okay, but then the daisies start like fighting them and beating them up and then it's like, what do we have to do in order to get past these daisies? And he's like, oh, smell the daisies. It's like, appreciate the daisies and then they'll give you what you want. It's like, oh my God, that was such like a sweet, like showing the quote unquote dumb character, but him having like his own outlook on life. It's like the way we can, get through things is not just by immediately fighting it. Maybe we need to approach it how it is, It's like, that was such a sweet, cool way of giving that character depth. You know what I'm saying? Like that could have just been the dumb, silly side character,
Yeah.
So Perito and Puss come across Kitty Softpaws, his ex, who basically he feels ashamed of because, they kind of do the setup of like, oh, what happened at some serious sounding place.
Right. And it's like, clearly he betrayed her in some way and we don't know until like near the end.
Yeah, and then it turns out like, oh, did, betrayed you for a job, something like that. It's like, no, at the altar. And, it cuts to him sort of like having that moment of like, it was the one time I was scared. That's basically the character arc.
Yeah.
Like, he has 9 lives and he's never scared except for that one time when he was scared, even though like nothing was at stake other than...
It's like he's not afraid of like, a giant or a dragon or whatever, but he's scared of commitment.
Yeah.
Also, I really liked the little subversion when we find out that she also left him in the altar.
That's what I think is cool.
Because it's like cliche of like the woman standing there in the wedding dress and like wanting to get tied down, even if the guy...
That would have felt a little weak for this type of movie, right?
Right, and having that extra twist of subversion where it's like, no, she knew what was what. She knew he wasn't up for it, and she didn't bother either.
And it twisted even further where she's just like, so that kind of like adds that extra, man, I was feeling bad this whole time, but oh, you knew me so well. Wow. Like, I thought I was making you feel bad, and meanwhile, it was just because you knew me the whole time, and this wasn't, like, you knew me so well that I didn't even, like, think about what was going on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, the idea that, like, they both had, like, cold feet at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like they both were having clear communication issues. You know what I'm saying? You don't leave each other at the altar without there being things you didn't discuss beforehand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like kind of talking about their characters. She's like, oh, I realized who this person was. Hey, maybe he's a little charismatic and a nice guy, but like ultimately, I think this guy is just all about himself, And so as the movie goes on, I think she has a moment, the moment where the person runs up and she hears the person talking about them, except I kind of like it in this way because it was like a little emotionally satisfying to hear her, before we get that reveal, her hearing that he left and admitting that he feels so bad about that, and her going, oh, like, you know what I mean? Oh, maybe he's different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe he's learned his lesson, like, and then she tries to soften the blow, like, oh, hey guys, oh, look, I just found you, hey, so anyways, let's get out, you know what I mean? Like, that was such a sweet moment, and then her revealing it later, to have that real bum thing, and then, oh my God, I gotta give some fucking props to El Lobo, the wolf.
He's genuinely scary.
When he, like, really starts talking his shit, so, like, he goes, like, correcto, corre, al tiro, something like that. He says something in Spanish.
Yeah, he's like, run,
shit.
run, little cat.
Yeah,
Corre,
yeah.
corre,
Like,
gatito.
oh shit.
Yeah.
And but he does this little whistle like. Anytime you hear it, you see Puss in Boots' like hair stand up on end, and it's like
Ugh.
it's that sort of like I said, Disney has a real problem with getting you to really be scared, to fear a villain. And with this movie, I was like, oh my god.
Well, because Disney's villains are all just super fun and campy. Which,
yeah, exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love me a Hades, love me an Ursula, not complaining.
But they do have menace to them. Those guys do have menace to them, though. You know, I'm talking about lately.
Oh, yeah. The late. Well, I mean, I haven't watched a lot of the later
villain
ones.
from the past decade that you remember, you know?
I mean, I literally don't even really remember the villain.
The only one
Moana.
I can remember is the lamb from Zootopia.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're not. It's this like, and I don't mean this in a right wing comic like, oh, Bridge too sensitive and the woke police or whatever type. But I feel like they genuinely are too worried about like upsetting anybody in any way that everything becomes completely inoffensive.
Yeah,
and it's
declawed.
like you're trying to market to like
the 4 quadrants.
You're trying to make sure that not a single 4-year-old cries during the movie.
Yeah, right.
You're not gonna have an effective movie.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I'm sorry, I'm not saying I'm out here wanting 4-year-olds to cry, but I'm just saying, like, if
you gotta challenge your audience to some degree, like,
Right,
you know.
right.
And I love when, again, this movie does the subversion of like the, you know, where you expected, oh, he's a guy who's conscripted, but it's the sort of the Coen brothers thing where he's a metaphor for death, you know, even though in the movie narratively he's being hired by someone, but he literally goes like, I am death, and I don't mean rhetorically, metaphorically, emotionally, no, I am actually that thing coming for your ass, because I don't like that cats get to have 9 lives. Fuck that. I'm coming for your life because I know you didn't appreciate those lives. So here's what we're going to do. Like, I love that the movie is really playing, like, it does more than just do the, you know, the man who's afraid, but then death comes for, like, I love that it really ratchets it up and makes you feel like, death's got a vendetta with this motherfucker. You think you can just avoid me? No. I'm going to scare you with that last line. I'm going to make you fear that. Like, you know what this is? This is the Saw guy, but done well. You know, I'm going to get you to appreciate life even if it kills you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then the whole thing of being like, you know, you're this arrogant man who thought you could avoid death. Well, now you're down to your last life. And now what? You know, that's the whole idea. So he flees again. There's a bunch of like ensuing like things where someone gets the map here and someone else gets the map here. Like it's a really like road movie where it's like, you know, it's the excuse honestly for the really cool visuals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then at one point, Puss in Boots kind of like has a panic attack and it's just like up against a tree and you see he's just like kind of like like he just seems like he's not going to be able to like, you know, handle this one. And then Perito comes up to him, he's like, what's going on? Are you okay? What's happening? And then he's like, he doesn't know necessarily what's happening, but then he just like sees his friend panicking and he just rests on him and just like breathes with him and just allows him to calm down.
And
It's
then
like,
Perito gets to prove himself as a therapy dog. Like, 'cause he says, like, that's his thing that he says from the beginning is like, I'm gonna be a therapy dog, and it's sort of played like a joke at first, but then it's like, no, he's actually effective. He's actually good at it.
So that's what I mean. Is like the joke character actually gets like purpose. Like, I mean, again, to take it back to the Frozen Olaf character, what does he do in that movie? Does he have any real usefulness? That's the problem with a lot of these cutesy side characters. It feels like Disney throws in like 2 or 3 of these guys and they do nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just there. I feel like it got really bad in Pocahontas. Like, what the hell does the raccoon, the bird, and the dog do? That's 3 cutesy characters.
I mean, I haven't watched Pocahontas since I was a kid, so I don't remember. But yeah, they didn't really do a lot.
The one thing they served a purpose as
They
was,
weren't like the
dog.
mice in Cinderella that are actually like straight up making stuff.
Yeah, literally involved. Yeah. No. But like in that movie, the point that they served was just kind of to be the dog from Europe and the raccoon from Native America. Oh, they're just gonna fight. I guess that's just what they're gonna do. You know.
Also, they were about the same size and shape, so it's like visually appealing.
And again,
to have them fight.
And again, why do you need the hummingbird? Why is there a 3rd animal there? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
To
You
be
know what I mean?
colorful and cute and flit around and add motion to the screen to keep the children's attention span.
Literally, I'm jumping around, buzzing hummingbird to keep people interested. Yeah. There's one point we get to the Goldie and 3 bears. They snag the map, and at one point it replicates kind of their like paradise or whatever. The idea is that it's supposed to be, because it happened to someone else before, they're like realizing that, oh, the map is messing with us, trying to get us to like whatever the heck, you know how it's the third act drama that's supposed to happen with the character arcs and whatnot. And we find out that Goldie's wish is that she wants to have a real family, like a human family. She's like, hey, I mean, you guys are fine, but like, we're not supposed to be together, right? So like, I'm supposed to have a real family. And you see like the moment of like the three bears are like, oh, well, I mean, we were fussing and fighting, but I thought we were, you know what I mean? It was like that, damn, like, oh God, this movie's making me feel something right now. Like, even though they have our problems, I thought we still loved each other, But then they go like, you know what? We're going to help you get your wish. If you don't want us as your family, fine. We're going to help you get that. It's like, that's sort of like all the family still like wants to help them, It's like, damn, that's like fucking love right there, So they plan to use Perito as like a trap because they kidnap him right when they're able to get the map, and it causes like the mountains of ego or something like that. So because you see the force like split up, and then it look down and you go like, oh no, Perito's been captured by the Goldilocks and the bears. So they set like this big bear trap to try to like put the dog in the middle of and try to capture him. Meanwhile, they're kind of like arguing and fussing and fighting. And Perito has the moment where he goes like, this is so hilarious. You guys are great. And they're like, what are you laughing at? You da-da-da-da-da. And they start like insulting him. And he goes like, oh, that's great. Let me do my turn. And he like dresses all of them down. It's like, you're like lame. You're this. You're da-da-da-da-da. And boop, boop. And you hear all these leaps happening. And he goes like, oh, it's so nice to have a family that you can joke around with. My family, I never really got to have that. But you guys are really lucky. And like he just off the fly just kind of like explains why they should appreciate each other, and it's just like, oh, whoa. You know what I mean? Oh, and then he's able to get away because he does something where he makes them look the other way, and then when they turn back, he's like, you've been had, or something like that. And yeah, because they were gonna put like a beehive above them and like a fake. No, he puts the fake dog there, and the dumb younger one goes, oh no, and hits the one, and then it activates the trap, and he's like, oh, we're supposed to be the ones who cry.
Crazier was there like a sideways reference to the Charmin bears in there?
I think so.
I feel like that's something. Oh, because he was like saying you got dingleberries, and he was like, I don't have dingleberries. He's like, yes, then you do. And I just was like, I feel like it was a very subtle reference to the Charmin bears.
I know, but like dingleberries is. I mean, I guess
it's like because it's like they're not going to outright say something because that would be too cheesy and too obvious. Yeah. But it's like we're all thinking about there are some bears that make sure their asses are clean.
Right. But I always think of dingleberries as like testicles. Like I guess they can be poop. Like
no dingleberries. No dingleberries is like little crumb. Oh God,
poop pellets.
It's like crumbs of poop on your butt hair.
Remember in Clerks where he says like, you guys got any balls down there about the biggest pair of dingleberries you ever seen or something like that?
Maybe, but I feel.
Oh no, wait, he says about the biggest pair you ever seen, dingleberry. That's what he says. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, I feel like dingleberry is referring to testicles as like a much less common. Usage. Anyway, that's as much as I want to think about dingleberries for the rest of my life.
Just for my own edification, I'm going to look up dingleberries and testicles.
Okay, while you were doing this. While you were Googling dingleberries and testicles on your own computer.
Yeah. Okay, it is possible. Yeah.
Okay, so something that is driving me crazy right now is that while I was watching this a few days ago, I remember watching this end part and thinking, this is so familiar. This is like, okay, I just watched something else that felt exactly like this story-wise of like, oh, all these people are coming together trying to compete to get this wish MacGuffin and get their wish, and there's like a bad guy who's trying to get the wish so he can have it for himself, whatever. And I cannot remember what it was that I had seen recently that I was thinking about. I'm thinking of like every movie I've seen, every TV show. I'm thinking of like books I've read and comics I've read recently, and I cannot remember what the thing is that was making me feel like borderline deja vu with the ending of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So if anybody else had borderline deja vu or felt like, oh, this is really familiar, I just watched something, please let me know, because I can't remember at all. It's driving me nuts now.
Trying to think what it could be.
It's driving me nuts.
Yeah. What that steering wheel
It's driving me dingle.
Yeah. I I just saw a Reddit post that says dingleberry should be a word used for testicles and not for poop pellets in your hair.
It doesn't sound like a terribly unpleasant thing.
Yeah.
Much as testicles are not a terribly unpleasant thing, poop pellets are, and it's too cute a name for that. Anyway, I don't want to think about.
All right,
that
yeah,
anymore.
let's get back. So the Cave of Souls, yeah. So there's a Cave of Souls that he kind of like comes across where he sees all of his past lives and how arrogant he's been and how, oh my God, there's this one hilarious part. Again, just a shout out to Antonio Banderas' incredible, inimitable voice. There's a part where he goes, where he's like making fun of himself. He's like, oh, he's not Puss and Boots, you heard. He goes by Pickles. Like, just the way he says Pickle.
Yeah.
Had me cracking up. Him ripping on himself. Oh my God. It was just so freaking good. And then, of course, the wolf arrives, and that's when he gives the speech where he's like, no, this ain't a metaphor. This is really, really about death, okay? This is really about this business. Now, okay, so I think we're about to have our special moment. We got our special guest.
All right.
Special uninvited guest just snuck in through the back door.
Hey,
wait, where you going? Where you going?
Child.
You're
Hey,
invited. You're invited on the podcast.
Come back here. All right, child. This is a child who is.
We want to get a kid's perspective.
All right, this is a 9-year-old whose favorite movie is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
That's right.
So, what do you think about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish?
It's my favorite movie.
All right, why is it your favorite movie?
I just think it's cool.
What's your favorite part?
The part with the crystally cave.
Yeah? What's cool about that?
The humanoid wolf who is apparently death. I don't know why it took us so long to realize that, though.
Right. It seemed like it was pretty obvious,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And who's your favorite character?
Death.
The death?
Ooh,
All
What do
right.
you think of Jack Horner?
Is he a good villain?
Yeah.
I think he is actually a pretty... He may be a kind of pretty evil even for a villain, but I don't think he is actually that good of a villain.
He's kind of a weak villain. That's kind of why they had El Lobo there, right? To be like, oh, he's the actual intimidating villain now. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts you want to share?
No.
Okay, go play your math games. Okay, there we go. Expert opinion.
I thought that was actually interesting to hear him say what he said about, what did he just say?
That it took Puss a long time to realize.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, as much as it's a kid's movie, it's like, yeah, it is kind of like, all right, we know what this is, right? Like, it is supposed to be that. Because, like, the very first scene where he's there, where it's kind of, I can understand because he kind of frames it in a way where he sounds like he's saying, I was hired by someone. But then after a while, where it's just like, okay, all right, what else could he be? And like I said, even the 9-year-old could figure out what the metaphor was, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe that could have been a little, better written, but, even the kid can figure it out. But, no worries. Hey, it's a kid's movie. So I see that's the thing. I think it's a balance, right? Of like playing with tropes that you understand because of course we're making a kid's movie where we're telling like basic stories of good and evil, but also trying to do something with like, well, but we know, the well-worn trope. So we're not just going to make Kitty Softpaws the damsel in distress in the third act. You know what I'm saying? So
It's always interesting as an adult looking at something that is aimed at kids and trying to figure out how to judge it, because obviously like something being completely entertaining and challenging for adults is not the mark of whether it's a good kids movie or kids book or whatever. But you also don't want to think, well, it doesn't matter. Quality doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be anything interesting because it's just for kids and they don't know better. So yeah, there's always a fine line to walk there.
So Puss gets the map at one point, like he just has it in his hands and he could have totally just made the wish. But then Kitty Softpaws shows up just like, basically giving him the business of like, oh yeah, I knew it all along. I thought we were going to share this. Cause that's right. They have a bit of an adventure earlier in the movie where it's like, whoa, we're working together. Maybe we can like really trust each other. Maybe this thing can happen, again, maybe you're not the same person that I knew, you know what I'm saying, last time. And you can tell because he's literally living a different life now. But then when she sees him about to make the wish, and this is what I kind of like though, that's that emotional state of like, oh, he could do this right now. Like there's nothing actually stopping him. The only thing that's stopping him is oh, wow, I knew you were this person all along. I knew you were this bastard. You know what I'm saying? And so what I like about that emotional moment of it is that he's like, you see that he really is scared. throughout this movie, you've seen him have the panic attacks. You know what I'm saying? He wants to be the hero that he was before, you know? And so this is a genuine, like, you get the character moment of why this guy is forsaking this person that he said that he was willing to share the wish with in order to, you know, not be afraid anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So again, like I said, like, this is a genuinely good character beat. And then there's the moment where basically stuff starts happening, Bayonetta 3 style, where like the edges of the star map are like basically kind of making people start to fade away. So if you don't make the wish in time or because people ripped up the map or something like that, it's causing like all of this turmoil and shit to happen. One of the bears starts slipping away, like falls off of the star and kind of like starts like slipping away. The mama bear catches him and then the daddy bear catches her. And then, you know, the girl gets access to the map and she's like, oh my God, I can make the wish. It's right here in front of me. And then she looks at her, you know, family looking like they're about to fade away. And she like jumps up to save them in the nick of time to throw away the map. And it's one of those like, whoa, like these are the differing degrees, right? Like these people that are, yeah, they may be, you know, rough and tumble or whatever, but they still love each other, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I say like they're antagonists, but they're not really villains. Like, because Jack Horner's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit. It's interesting, and I like actually having both too because I
Showing
feel like
the dynamics of
there's
like, yeah.
the Marvelitis of, you know, when your villain is so sympathetic that it's just like, well, why are we on the other guy's side again?
Right.
There's the like, hey, we should have villains be complex and sympathetic to the point that you're just making the villain right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I feel like this does.
And they just don't know how to balance it other than he's right, but then he shot a baby in the face, you know?
Right.
Like, yeah.
And this is nice because it's like there are sympathetic antagonists and then there's an antagonist who's just full on hateable.
Yeah, like, because I'm sorry, that's the world. There are some people who, yeah, you can understand their journey, but they still suck. And then there's other people like, you can understand their journey because they're struggling with something, and that's why they're like needing to lead a certain type of life. You know what I mean? Like,
and I feel like having like the multiple antagonists is a good.
Yeah, it doesn't make a redundancy in the same way that like if you watch Batman and Robin in the 90s, what's the difference between Poison Ivy and Bane and Mr. Freeze? It's just, he really wants to kill Batman, and she really wants to kill Batman, and he really wants to take over. You know what I mean? Like, there's no dynamicism really between other than, oh, he's freezing, and she's warm, and, you know, flowers, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I really like. It actually gives you a reason why these different characters have these different motivations, and like, oh yeah, this person still has a family that they love, so of course they're not going to give that up, versus this Jack Horner character who like doesn't care about anyone. And you see the little guy on his shoulder trying to, you know, prod him into being a better person. You seeing him pushing back and being like, no, I'm not. Stop looking for the better person. It's not there. Eventually Kitty Sawpaws is able to like kick him into his like bag of holding. Essentially.
It's Mary Poppins' carpet bag.
That's right. So,
because he calls it an Annie bag, and it looks just like Mary Poppins' carpet bag.
So Death, Ed Lobo shows up, you know, challenges him to a fight. It's an incredible, cool looking scene. But, you know, he says the thing where, you know, you have the moment of, oh, you know, Death is, got you on your last legs and you're not going to be able to fight now. What are you going to do? But then he gives the speech. He's like, I used to live for myself, but now I live for my family. And I genuinely love that moment where like the wolf of death basically comes up to him and is like, I can kill you right now. But he's like, no, you're not the same person. Like, I was supposed to kill an arrogant bastard and you're actually care about, like, it's the, you know, they're like,
won by character development.
Right.
he had personal growth, and that's how he.
But I like, for a kids movie, I remember I was watching that moment. Like, you know, when you watch a moment in a movie, you're like, how is this going to resolve? What are they genuinely going to do about this?
Yeah.
And the way they resolved it in a kid's movie manner of like, oh, I can't come after you now. Like, you've actually changed. I would be a jerk in this movie if I were to do it now. You know what I mean? But then they still have the like, hey man, but I'm still coming for you, bro. Like, don't be too safe now. I'll let you go now because you've learned your lesson. But, you know, death comes for us all, you know? So it's that sort of like, oh, buddy, harrowing thing in the background. So, like, it's a respectable villain character, you know? Like, he never 100% loses his menace, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now this is a bit of a thing that I have, like, action fatigue, where it's like, okay, we had the big fight scene with all three of the characters running around, and
Yeah.
then we have Death show up, and then
No,
Jack Warner
it's
comes up.
the same thing for me. Like, action fatigue is a great way to put it, because it's like, no matter how well done a fight scene is, at a certain point, it's like, okay, I just want to.
Like, are they? Yeah,
just
can
give
they
me the
just get
story.
something?
Like, let
Can
me
they get a
just-
win? Like, yeah. El Lobo is the best villain of the movie, but he doesn't really do anything because he's not.
He's like, I feel like El Lobo isn't even a villain. He's like the existential threat.
Yeah. Made
Which
manifest.
Which is way cooler. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
Jack Horner is the villain, the Bear family are
Or
secondary antagonists,
Yeah.
and then El Lobo is the existential looming threat.
Yeah. So the way they personify it is actually really fucking cool. It's like I said, this kids movie is like doing some shit right now, you know. So yeah, but Horner eats the magic snack. He gets out of the bag because he gets huge. Perito like does a thing where he talks to him just long enough to do the "oh, you didn't see that," like, which I think is a little kind of like, all right, a little telegraphed. But then the part that I really like is when John Mulaney, he has the bit where he goes like, "Hey, maybe we should bury the," and reaches in and he goes, "hatchet," and pulls out like a hatchet, and then
Yeah.
like that's just enough time for like Kitty Softpaws to like attack him like right after he did that, and then
Like, that's what you get for telegraphing like an
and
asshole.
he literally says it, "Did I telegraph that? What?" And like that was the moment where I was like, that is hilarious, because these villains always do the come on, you wouldn't
'cause
take that extra beat to attack him, you would just
'cause
attack him.
The long villain speech while the hero is tied up has already been like lampshaded to death, but that
Yeah.
little moment is still something that
Right.
Yeah.
The guy who's got to get one more joke in, like, even though in the moment you would probably just do the thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really freaking funny. They have the resolution. Goldie and the three bears are like, "Oh, we're all a family. We all love each other," Puss and Kitty decide to get together. And then of course they end with sailing to far, far away in order to visit a few old friends.
Yeah, so
That was so nice.
That was like, also, I feel like I'm just shitting on Marvel today, apparently. Because I was saying that's setting us up for a sequel, but in a way that feels like exciting and hopeful, but not like, oh great, now I have to wait for another movie to come out to find out what happens. Because it's just like, I don't know what's gonna happen if they go to far, far away and link back up with Shrek and them. It's not like I'm not sitting there on a cliffhanger being like, oh, what was that strange thing about it? It's just like, oh cool, they might do a thing with Shrek. That would be
also
fun.
the reason I like it is like, even if you don't know anything about Shrek, like the reason why I think it works is like, oh, these like fairy tale creatures going on another adventure to far, far away.
Right,
Like, it can work without
you
the
don't
reference.
need the lore.
Yeah,
You
you
don't need
get what
the
I'm
lore.
saying?
And it's also another nice thing about the Shrek universe being built on these fairy tales and things that everybody knows is that these are things that you probably have heard as a kid, like, through cultural osmosis, like,
Right.
it doesn't require having read all, like, 15,000 sequels of a particular
Yeah,
comic
so
run.
it's like, it's one of those things where as I'm watching it, it's like, wow, this is probably the
Issues.
best
I
way to
forgot
do
the word
this.
issues for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't require having read all like 3,000 issues of a particular comics run to be able to know what's going on. Like, you can just kind of like something will tingle in the back of your memory, like, right, Pinocchio is the thing with the cricket, and
Yeah, and the way it's doing so much more with it, like dancing on top of it with the jokes, it's like, even if you don't 100% get it, it's still just so fun anyway that it's just a good time, but it does such a good job of pulling you in. So all around, it's a good ass fucking movie. Definitely give it a chance. I just said that for a kids movie. All in all, it's a really good movie, okay? Definitely. Oh wait, bleep that out. Yeah, it's PG. It's a really good movie because that's what we're doing now, right? So definitely give this one a watch if you haven't already. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. Put that on that. What is it on Hulu?
dude.
Look at you, honestly.
No, I'll tell you why I'm falling asleep, and it's because other podcast shout out that I think I might have mentioned before is I always listen to the Sleep With Me podcast, which is this guy, Scoot, who just talks and he makes you fall asleep. And I have a Pavlovian response to his voice. It makes me fall asleep. Part of it is every episode he does an Antonio Banderas impression at some point. So I have a Pavlovian response. It didn't make me fall asleep during Puss in Boots, I think, because the Puss in Boots visual, but just hearing you know what it is? Antonio Banderas' voice doesn't make me fall asleep, but hearing somebody do an impression of Antonio Banderas makes me fall asleep. That's when I got sleepy from hearing somebody do an intro. Stop! No, I'm gonna pass out.
Anyways, before I lull my co-host to sleep, this has been the Review a New Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, if you want to make a request, that's kofi.com/rapcritic for movies or new album requests for this year, or go to patreon.com/rapcritic if you want to get those episodes early. All the content that I'm working on, music, podcasts, you know what I'm saying, Rap Critic episodes, get with it, act like you want it. And until next time, I'm DJ.
I'm Evan.
And some kitty once told me my lies were gonna roll me out. I was trying to figure out some way to incorporate. All right, I thought that was clever reference. Yeah.